My name is Tyler Butler, and I'm a planner with the city's Development Services Department. The focus of tonight's meeting will be on 2 applications for communications towers located at 750 Big Bay Point Road and 10 Patterson Road. The application at 750 Big Bay Point will be presented first, followed by a question and comment period, after which 10 Patterson Road will be presented, followed by another question and comment period. Both applications are proposed to be operated by Rogers Communications. Please be aware that we are recording this meeting tonight for the public record. All information provided is being collected and will be used for the purpose of garnering your input to respond to inquiries and will be considered public information. Should you have questions regarding this collection, please contact the Development Services Department. I would like to let everyone know that there are staff behind the scenes managing the technology tonight. They have the ability to interrupt the meeting at any time and will allow the applicant and members of the public the opportunity to speak. Please bear with us if you have any technical issues. We'll do our best to get you back into the meeting. So I'm going to go over the meeting overview and expectations now. Tonight's meeting is not a statutory requirement under the Planning Act, as the applications do not require municipal permits or approvals. The city's telecommunications protocol requires consultation with the public on proposed towers within the city. All decisions related to the communications towers applications will be made by Industry Canada. The intent of tonight's meeting is to provide members of the public with an opportunity to become familiar with the development applications and also ask the applicant questions to provide feedback. What can you expect during this virtual neighborhood meeting? Well, you can expect a presentation from the applicant's representative describing proposals and Industry Canada's review process, a brief overview of the city's review process and timing, and an opportunity to ask questions of either the applicant or city staff to identify concerns and comments with the applications. What to not expect. You should not expect a city staff recommendation on the application or a debate on the merits of the proposal between city staff and the applicant. Once we move on to the Q&A period, if you wish to ask a question or provide a comment, you will be required to use the meeting controls to raise your virtual hand. You can find the raise your hand button and other meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. For those who are joining us by phone, you may press 9 to raise your virtual hand, and when you are called on to speak, you can press 6 to unmute yourself. You will be called by name to speak, and then you will then need to unmute yourself. And then please clearly state your name, address, and then provide your comment and question. As we work through the questions and comments later in this meeting, I respectfully request that members of the public please avoid repeating the same questions and comments over. Once a specific matter has been identified, it will be documented and the applicant will either provide a response verbally this evening or provide a response later in the process in written format. This approach will allow us to have a more productive meeting and conclude the meeting as scheduled, particularly since we are dealing with 2 applications. So, next steps after tonight's meeting, a little bit about the process. Before we get into the presentations, I just wanted to quickly highlight the next steps in the process. The applications have been deemed complete and circulated for comment and review. The review process includes collecting comments from the city's technical groups and external agencies, as well as members of the public. That's why we're here this evening. Following this meeting, staff will continue the technical review process associated with the applications, and the applicants may make any necessary revisions to the development proposal. Once the review process has concluded, the staff recommendation will be given to the applicant for their consideration. All comments received throughout the review process, including those received this evening at the neighborhood meeting, will be identified and addressed and will form part of staff's comments to Industry Canada. I will now move on to the applicant's presentations. As I mentioned, the application at 750 Big Bay Point Road will be presented first, followed by a question and comment period, after which 10 Patterson Road will be presented with another question and comment period following after that. So tonight we are focusing on the 2 communications towers application. This first tower, proposed at 750 Big Bay Point Road, is proposed to be 30 meters tall, and tonight we do have the applicant and members of their team, Sarah Duncan and Sean Ogilvie from Forbes Brothers Limited, who will make the first presentation on 750 Big Bay Point. I will now hand the meeting over to the applicant to introduce the project and begin the presentation.
Okay, good evening. Thank you. Let me just figure out. I've lost my share screen button here. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. There we go. Okay, apologies. Hopefully everyone can see what I'm looking at here. As Tyler, thank you for the introduction. My name is Sean Ogilvie, and I am from Forbes Bros Limited, an infrastructure consulting and construction company. Myself and my colleague Sarah Duncan are here at this virtual meeting representing Rogers Communications for their proposed tower developments in the city of Barrie. A little bit of background. I'm sure nobody here needs much background on Rogers. They are a nationwide media company, and specifically today we're concerned with their wireless division. Rogers, I'm sure you all know, provides wireless voice and data communication services to individual consumers, businesses, governments, other telecommunication services providers, and they provide these services under the Rogers, Fido, and Chatter brands. Some of you may not have heard, or most likely all of you probably have not heard of Forbes Brothers. We're a nationwide infrastructure and construction company. It started out as a power line construction company in Saskatchewan, and they've branched out into numerous different areas of similar infrastructure development. And myself and Sarah are from the Telecom, Real Estate, and Government Affairs Department. And so we will be walking you through these proposals and hopefully answering any questions. Tyler did provide an overview of the project, but hopefully this gives you a bit better idea of what we're looking at here. So Rogers has proposed a 30-meter monopole structure, which is a steel tube type tower structure at 750 Big Bay Point Road. The address and legal description are on your screen, as well as specific geographic coordinates. On the map, you can see it's proposed sort of towards the middle of the property on the western side. It's, like I said, it's 30 meters tall, and the associated part of this development is a radio equipment cabinet, and it's all located in a small fence compound of 6 meters by 7 meters. And we'll give you more information on the design in just a moment. But the idea, sort of big overview here, is the idea is to provide improved coverage and capacity for the area. So with that, we'll jump right into sort of the need for this proposal, why Rogers is even doing it. So what Rogers is interested in doing here is improving their coverage, and they improve their coverage in two ways, both in reach, which is sort of what it sounds like, is just how far radio signals travel, including around and through obstacles, and perhaps more importantly these days, what we're talking about is improving coverage capacity, which is how many end users can access the network at once and what those users are doing on the network. These days, especially in an urban area, like we're in a relatively large city, Barrie we're talking about, it's not as if cell coverage does not exist. And indeed, even in this area, I'm sure most devices, Rogers cell phone will probably work. Looking at the coverage map here based on these colors, in the area surrounding our address of 750 Big Bay Point Road, they have their Lte coverage, so 4G, listed as in-building light, which means depending on the conditions of any given day, it should work fairly reliably inside and outside for telephone calls. But these days, what we're more concerned with, not only improving the coverage for the area, so the benchmark coverage you see in the dark purple there is the optimal coverage for these devices, but also is the amount of data consumption. So one of the sort of what makes all these devices so usable, these wireless devices, is their ability to access the internet. You can stream audio and visual content. You can work from your phone, email, internet access, all the things we all use these devices for, eats up the capacity of the network. And if you have a lot of people using this at the same time, that actually shrinks the coverage area and your devices stop working, or stop working properly anyways. This is where you start to have blackouts, drop calls, all those sorts of things. So Rogers and all the other carriers are proactively always looking to fill these areas. So here we have a map, and if you can see that sort of red dash box, that's the star is the proposed location. The road just south of that is Big Bay Point Road, And that box is sort of showing the general area they're looking to improve, which would be from the lake south to nearing Mapleview Drive east, and sort of from towards Young Street on the west to 20th Side Road on the east. The idea here, if we flip to the next slide, with the site in operation, is what that would look like. So the proposed site, 6214 at 750 Big Bay Point Road, would connect with existing Rogers sites to both the east and west. It would largely fill in all the areas surrounding with, if not benchmarking coverage, which is the optimal coverage, it would have good in-building coverage, and it would extend through all the residential areas surrounding, at the very minimum, light in-building coverage, so it should work quite reliably indoors and outdoors for the surrounding area. So the first step in proposing this tower, to give a bit of background, is when Rogers is looking to make these coverage improvements, they decide on what the ideal location would be, and then they provide a search area either to their own internal departments or to an outside agent, as they've done in this case. The search area is essentially an ideal set of coordinates of where they would want to put this tower, and then a boundary showing geographical limitations of how far, what the flexibility is to achieve their coverage goals. In this case, that boundary is approximately shown by the red dashed oval and the highlighted area. As you can see from a generic overview of this, it's largely a residential area. There is some open green space, which is mostly tree covered, and then a handful of sort of commercial and service properties along Big Bay Point Road. If we look a little closer at the specifics of this area and the limitations, we have a municipal services property that's highlighted as MSU. We have 750 Big Bay Point Road, which is a commercial and residentially zoned property. There's an institutional property on the east side of Royal Parkside Drive, and the remainder of the area is largely residentially designated, which is no good. So the first step when we're looking through the search area prescribed by Rogers is to find out if there's any existing infrastructure that we can use. That could be a tall building like a condo or apartment, another tall object, or sometimes, if you're lucky, there's an existing tower in the area that you can piggyback on. In this case, there are not any tall buildings, but there is an existing tower on the municipal services property. Unfortunately, for their own internal reasons, the municipal services department could not offer space to Rogers on that tower. And so with those options disqualified, we had to find a location for a new freestanding tower. In this area, you know, in proximity to residential, it's not ideal. So in this case, the best possible option was 750 Big Bay Point Road, and that landowner was willing to house the development. So that is how we ended up here. And from there, we walked through the development with the city. A little more detail now on the location. Hopefully everyone can see this map clearly. Like I mentioned, it is proposed on the west side of the property. That site is approximately 95 meters west from Royal Parkside Drive and 72 meters north of Big Bay Point Road, somewhat splitting the difference between abutting the roadway or abutting the residential areas north of the property. This final location, you know, it's selected because it meets the technical requirements of the search area. As well, it was a location that the landowner was willing to place us. And so that's how it ends up there. A bit more information on the design of this proposal. So the image on the left side of the slide here is an excerpt from the site survey. All this is showing, that's showing the existing building on the south, or the more southerly building existing on the property, some of the parking area, and our access point off of Royal Parkside Drive. Rogers is able to use the existing access, so there's no new roadway being constructed. Access will come through the parking lot, and over to the site on the west side of the property. If you look at the top right, the compound will actually be situated next to an existing external electrical room, which I think is a small brick building on the property. There is a extension of the curb there, and that is where the tower, equipment, and compound will go. If you look to the lower right corner of this slide, there's an elevation drawing. So the tower design is what we refer to as a 30, or the height is irrelevant here, but what we refer to as a shrouded monopole. All that means is it's a singular steel tube type design, similar in appearance to a large flagpole. And the shrouding just refers to the fact that the equipment, wiring, all that stuff is actually located on the inside of the tower rather than bolted to the outside. Generally, this is considered an improved design, if you will, over a more common or standard cell tower. The equipment and connections at the base of the tower will all be located in a fence compound, and the fence structure in this case, I believe, is being designed to match as close as possible the existing design of the buildings on the property. So I believe that electrical room is brick. The fence might be a fake brick or a wood fence painted to match a similar color and aesthetic of what's already on the property. Another quick shot. This is a photo rendering of what this tower might appear if you were standing on Royal Parkside Drive facing west. So this would be from the access point, approximately 95 meters away, is roughly the view you'd get. And again, so the design is essentially a large flagpole, only without the flag. With those details on the proposed development out of the way, we'll give a bit background on the regulations and the process that we follow here. So in Canada, telecommunications is regulated by the federal government. They set the law. It's underneath the Radio Communication Act. And within that act, it is actually Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada who establishes the regulations for the consultation process. So this process dictates that we consult with the municipality, with the public, etc. They also set some general requirements which have to be met for every single site. And those requirements are Transport Canada requirements, NAV Canada requirements, there's Health Canada requirements, and there are RF immunity or interference requirements, all of which have to be satisfied before anything can be constructed. From a local process standpoint, we are required to consult with the local municipality, the City of Barrie in this case. Although they are not the approval authority, they are a commenting body to both Rogers in this case and the Federal Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. They work with us and with the federal government, if it comes to that, to facilitate a review of the proposal and any public consultation requirements. And at the end of the process, they are ultimately a recommending authority. So ideally, we get a positive recommendation, but it's possible for them also to make a non-concurrence recommendation. And at that point, we would circle back. A little bit more about the local requirements. One of the main factors here is they set the public consultation requirements. In this case, specific to this proposal, area residents and property owners were notified from a mailed notice, which was sent by the city. The city also placed a notice in the local newspaper. Additional requirements here, we have the virtual public meeting going on right now. There was also a sign placed on the property. And our goal here tonight is to respond to any questions or comments, and ideally alleviate any concerns and make sure that local input has been considered in our siting process. That is more or less it for this one, and I guess we'll open it up to some questions.
Hi, everybody.